The rain tasted like ash. Detective Leo Maxwell spat, pulling his fedora lower against the downpour hammering against the corrugated iron roof of the warehouse. The stink of damp concrete and cheap whiskey clung to the air, a familiar perfume in this part of the city. He's been staking out this place for 3 nights straight, a grimy monument to illicit trade. Tonight, it seemed, his patience was about to pay off. Inside, through a crack in the boarded-up windows, he could make out movement. Figures silhouetted against the dim glow of lanterns, their voices a low murmur that barely carried over the drumming rain. He's been told this was a distribution point for Silas's silk, a new brand of heroin flooding the streets of New Arcadia. Silas Moretti, a ghost in the criminal underworld, rumored to be a former accountant who turned to a life of crime after a disagreement with his employers. Nobody knew his face, only his reputation for ruthless efficiency. Maxwell shifted, adjusting the shoulder holster beneath his worn trench coat. His partner Frankie the Fist Moretti was supposed to be here, but Frankie was running late. Again, the kid had the penchant for daying trouble, a weakness Maxwell couldn't quite comprehend. He seen the look on the captain's face, a weary mix of exasperation and pity. A flash of red caught his eye. A woman, draped in a crimson dress that screamed defiance against the drab surroundings, pushed past the shadowed figures. Her hair was the color of midnight, styled in a fashionable way that defied the grimy atmosphere. She moved with a feline grace, her eyes scanning the room with an unnerving intensity. Maxwell recognized her instantly. Lola Bellweather, Silas's right-hand woman, and a dame who knew more than she let on. "Something you want to see, detective?" Lola's voice was a low purr laced with sarcasm. She leaned against the doorway, the rain plastering her hair to her forehead. Maxwell hadn't realized he was visible. "Just admiring the architecture," Maxwell replied, his voice carefully neutral. Lola laughed, a sound that lacked warmth. "Funny, you look more like a rat caught in a trap." She straightened, her eyes fixed on his. "Silas isn't pleased you're here. Tell Silas I'm just trying to do my job." "Your job is to be invisible, detective. Silas doesn't like to be watched." She paused and added, "Leave now and I might just forget you saw anything." Maxwell ignored her. He needed to see what was going on inside. "I've got a warrant. A lie, but a necessary one." Lola's expression didn't change. She simply nodded, then disappeared back into the warehouse. Maxwell waited, listening to the shuffling and whispers intensify. Moments later, the doors burst open, revealing a scene of controlled chaos. Men in dark suits, faces obscured by shadows, surrounded the warehouse floor. "Police! Everyone freeze!" Maxwell barked, drawing his service revolver. The room erupted. A brief, violent firefight ensued. Maxwell moved with a practiced efficiency, taking down 2 men before Frankie finally arrived, bursting through the doors with a bellow. "Sorry I'm late, Leo. Had a little delay." Frankie grinned, knocking a 3rd man off his feet. Maxwell grunted, pushing deeper into the warehouse. They found Silas, not surrounded by henchmen, not issuing orders, but bound and gagged in a small, windowless room. Standing over him was Lola Bellweather. "What's going on here, Lola?" Maxwell asked, his revolver trained on her. Lola smiled, a genuine, almost relieved expression. "Silas is a fraud, detective. He doesn't run this operation. He's a puppet." She gestured to a man hidden in the shadows, a familiar face to Maxwell. Victor Russo, a disgraced former City Hall employee, known for his gambling bets and shady connections. "Russo's been pulling the strings," Lola explained. "He uses Silas as a front to keep the heat off himself." Maxwell understood immediately. Silas, the elusive kingpin, was nothing more than a patsy, a carefully constructed illusion to mask Russo's true reach. "Why?" Maxwell asked. Lola hesitated, then replied, "Russo's been skimming from the profits, diverting the money into offshore accounts. He's planning to disappear." Suddenly, a shot rang out. Maxwell spun around, but it was too late. Frankie stumbled, clutching his chest, a crimson stain spreading across his shirt. "Frankie!" Maxwell shouted, rushing to his partner's side. "Russo!" Frankie gasped, his eyes wide with shock. "He set me out." Russo stepped out of the shadows, a sneer on his face. He held a small, pearl-handled revolver. "Sorry, detective," Russo said, his voice dripping with malice. Frankie knew too much. Maxwell felt a surge of anger, a primal urge to inflict pain, but he forced himself to remain calm, to focus on the task at hand. "You're making a big mistake," Russo, Maxwell warned. Russo laughed. "What are you going to do about it, detective? You're outnumbered." Maxwell glanced around. He was outnumbered, but he wasn't out of options. He's seen too much in this city to underestimate the power of desperation. "Don't move, Russo," Maxwell said, his voice deceptively calm. Maxwell's eyes flickered to Lola. She understood instantly. With a subtle nod, Lola drew a small, silenced pistol from her purse and fired. Russo crumpled to the floor, the pearl-handled revolver falling from his grasp. The remaining henchmen, momentarily stunned, were quickly apprehended by Maxwell. As the police sirens wailed in the distance, Maxwell turned to Lola. "Why did you do it?" he asked. Lola shrugged. "Silas used me too. He promised me a better life, but all he gave me was lies." She paused, then added, "I'm tired of being a pawn." Maxwell stared at her, trying to decipher the truth behind her words. Was she genuinely reformed, or was this just another elaborate deception? He's learned over the years that in New Arcadia, appearances are often deceiving. He wasn't going to call her out on it. Not now. He had a partner to mourn, a case to close, and a city to protect. "You're free to go," Lola Maxwell said. Lola nodded, then disappeared into the rain-soaked night. Maxwell watched her go, a sense of unease settling in his gut. He knew he hadn't seen the last of Lola Bellweather. He knelt beside Frankie, his hand resting on his fallen partner's shoulder. The rain continued to fall, washing the grime and blood from the streets. "You always did have a nose for trouble," Frankie Maxwell murmured. He knew that justice in New Arcadia was a fickle thing, often served cold and laced with betrayal. He also knew that he would continue to fight for it, even if it meant wading through the city's darkest shadows. Because in a city like this, somebody had to. He looked up at the sky, a sliver of moon breaking through the clouds. The city lights twinkled below, a false promise of safety and security. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, and new betrayals. But he would be ready. He always was. The rain felt colder now, as if the city itself was weeping for the fallen.